Hey, and welcome to my show, Outside of the Vox, where we explore different perspectives on approaching one's path as a voiceover talent. I'm Naomi Mercer-McKell, a voiceover professional of over 18 years, and I also teach voiceover business and marketing courses like Outstanding VO Branding, the Workflow of VO, and the Campaign Creator. My guest today is Catherine Campion. She's a coach, a longtime talent, and within moments of meeting her, an old friend. Her ideas for change are logical and rational, but voiceover has never moved swiftly in that direction. I mean, how long did it take for the industry to finally stop requesting a slate? How long did it take to finally start using alternatives to ISDN lines? Hopefully it won't take that long to catch on to her idea that we should all be able to cast off of our demo the way that they do in Europe. Can you even imagine what it would be like to not have to audition all day, every day? Also, listen for when she chats about her knowledge on acquiring international talents. This interview is a wealth of outside-of-the-box thinking. Enjoy! And you are an exciting guest to have after J. Michael Collins because when you sent me, excuse me, it was a video of a class that you taught. So I sort of audited it. You co-taught it with
Sean.
Yeah.
You gotta interview him
VO
too.
Dojo.
He's been interviewed,
Yeah?
for a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
He's been interviewed for a lot of. He came up with the term, well, or maybe at the same time as other people, but the Okay, so there's a digital nomad. Digital nomad.
Vomad. Oh, as
Digital
good.
vomad.
Oh God, I love it. Okay,
Yeah,
Talk
So
about.
he's been interviewed as the digital vomad for different like international travel blogs and like working remote and some VO stuff. And then he's, we generally teach that course together because there's
Really
stuff that-
cool.
how I ended up partnering with him. It's changed both of our careers and lives. And it was a really interesting thinking outside of the box of how that all started. And I love sharing that story to inspire people to like take a risk and reach out. And
Why don't you go into it right now while it's fresh in your mind? I am recording.
So I have a business partner of sorts, like a colleague, an accountability buddy in VO, Sean Gray, voiceofgray.com, I'm pretty sure. He was born in England, grew up in the Netherlands. His mother is Italian. His father is Irish. He's, of course, fluent in Dutch and English, and I think Italian, and then speaks some
Helpful.
German. And
Oh,
then he
wow.
lives in Bali like a king. I am an Irish citizen through my parents. I speak Spanish. I've lived and traveled all over the world. So I've never met him in person. We've been working together for years. We do workshops together. I feel like in the next year or two, we'll definitely be at the same place at the same time.
Maybe VO Atlanta next year.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for him to get from Bali to the U.S.
Right.
He has been here in the U.S., not in Minneapolis. So the way I found him was the only pay to play that I really recommend to people or that I've had great success on and I think is so legit across the board is Armin's Bodalgo. And I was on there like 10, 15 years ago whenever it launched. And then I didn't do pay to plays for a long time. I was killing it in the union US market. So I wasn't doing that stuff. But I'm so glad that I was back on there. I'm not on there now because I'm too busy with other stuff, but I was on there for the past couple of years. And this gentleman had posted a description of a sort of the female equivalent of himself that he was looking for. A client was looking for a female to be added to a project he was working on. So I submitted my demo, which we can talk about too. The whole thing about not auditioning and just submitting demos is a big part of what I preach and teach and the way that I want the industry to move forward and a big part of my big transition in my career, like this week. So I submitted my demo and didn't do a custom read. And we've talked about that since then. He's like, yeah, had you done a custom read, I probably would have selected you. I was really impressed with your demo, but I was just like, I didn't have time. I really needed to make sure that the person could do it, so that I took someone who did a custom read. And a couple weeks later, I hadn't heard from him. So I just emailed him. I looked him up and I was like, this guy is basically the male equivalent of my career and my voice. I mean, even like similar
The guy
words
who
you.
did the casting and made the posting?
Sean Gray, yeah.
Okay, got it.
So I emailed him and I was like, how would you like to be like business partners? How would you like to be, for a variety of reasons, accountability and camaraderie? Because we work alone all the time in our little booths, so it was like a little social, but more like I could see ways that we could level each other up. And he was like, yes, oh my god,
Good for
because I
you.
at that point I would say like years, uh, legitimacy. I mean, I'm like in the 5%, let's say. Like I'm a top level 6-figure working VO pro, and he was only like year 3, but he was killing it at year 3. Even like he had some really huge impressive international bookings, so he was really honored that I had asked him that. And it just, we turned out to be like great friends. I just adore him. I can't wait to hang out with him in person. Maybe we'll go spend a winter in Bali. But that's how we met, and now we are an international partnership, and we've given each other a lot of work every
Super
time we get a
cool.
new client or a new. And the great thing about like the gender difference is like we're pretty much never each other's competition.
That crossed my mind because I
Yeah.
had an accountability type partner, business colleague, whatever, and we spoke and kept each other accountable once a week. I think for almost 5 years. It was a
Cool.
long time. Like time with bouncing a baby, being pregnant, like through so much. And then at the beginning of the pandemic, it was kind of like, well, I'm going to take a break for a while, and we haven't started back up since, but the work thing, we overlapped 100%. Like
Yeah.
and that's really nice to be able to have someone on the opposite spectrum so you can just throw work at each other.
Yep.
We did give each other work sometimes, but it was when we just couldn't do a job that was for us.
Yeah.
It wasn't, yeah.
Yeah, even like anytime I get a new agent, as soon as I book with that agent, I'm like, you know who else you should meet? Or anytime I get a new client, as soon as I've wrapped and invoiced and been paid, I'll be like, if you're ever looking for
Yeah.
like a full version of me. So we just take care of each other, and I feel like our workload and our income's like doubled or
I
tripled just.
absolutely love that attitude of just always reaching back or sending the elevator back down for your people too, and not trying to, that's great. Well, okay, let me go into my first question for you because it ties into everything that we're talking about. So you really blazed your own trail with your international client list. So can you tell us more about that? Like, if this is gonna go into your classes and your coaching, talk about it. Tell me how it went from your own path and something that you do to now something that you give back and offer and help other people.
Yeah, I feel like the international thing, I kind of like a lot of what we do, like kind of stumbled into it. It wasn't like I set out to be an
Right.
international talent, but I am like you, I'm an international multilingual person. So that helped, but I don't want people to think that that is a prereq for working internationally. Like US voices, native English language speakers, even foreign English language speakers, like there's so much need for the English language all over the world. So most people seem to work in their own market, and it never even occurred to them. Like so many people come to me and they're like, wait, I can work in like any industry where you're working remotely. Pretty much you could work in other markets. So why not work in other like high level or even higher level markets than the one you live in? I don't know what percentage of your people are US or North American, but for those of us in the US, like it's very common to just work like with agents in the US. And other than like some pay to place, people don't know about getting like international clients and what those rates might be. So I love expanding people's already existing voiceover careers from like a US or North American based, or I certainly have students that are Irish or British or African or
Cool.
different countries, different continents, South American, who come to me and they're like, I want to know how to tap into all these different markets, especially people that come from more developing markets. When I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, you could make like 6 figures in US dollars. And they're like, oh, I make $2.50 an hour here in Venezuela. I'm like, yeah, you can make more in an hour doing a big voiceover gig than you could make in like a month of working in person in Venezuela. So
Cool.
yeah.
So you figured out your own way to find and acquire clients. It started going really well. Then you started teaching workshops about that for people to build up their international client list, being a sensei, a VO Dojo sensei, right? Is there any else or other, or is that kind of you've just partnered with them and done your teaching them and now you do privates and private stuff, right? And my last question before you answer all of the
Yeah, yeah.
cluster is do you coach any like technique on things, or is it mostly business coaching and
Okay,
marketing
all
stuff?
good questions. So a year and a half ago, Tish Hicks of the VO Dojo, who is one of my favorite best friends, best colleagues of all time in the VO world. We
Oh,
were both at Abrams at the same time in Los Angeles, Abrams artist, now A3. We were both, I was the voice of Subaru for 3 years, and now she's been the voice of Subaru for like a decade, and she's killing it.
wow.
Can't wait to have another ongoing union six-figure campaign like that. So when pandemic happened, the dojo was like one of the top local LA in-person schools, in LA, and to me, like one of the top schools in the world, because of course LA is like the top market in the world for voiceover, I think,
Yeah.
for the access to jobs, Hollywood stuff, big movies and TV and commercials. And so, she called me early of last year, like January. So it was just a year and a half ago. And she's like, would you ever want to coach for me? And I can't believe, like, I did not hesitate to say, I was like, yeah, of course. And I was like, wait a second.
What did I just do?
Well, I wouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have said yes to anyone else. There's no one. I had no interest in coaching. I didn't know if I was good at it. I'm really skeptical about the people who are both talent and coaches, because you don't, just because you're a talent doesn't mean you're a good coach. And I
Amen.
didn't want to commit to something and then discover, oh, I'm not actually a great coach. So on that note, I will say that honestly, this is not like imposter syndrome, but I know like what my strengths and weaknesses are. I am best at directing, like taking a working pro and getting their read better is like directing, versus coaching modality, we call it, is like a beginner or someone who kind of needs to be spoken to in the way that you would never hear in a session. Like in a session, they're not,
Right. Line
well, who are you
calling or
talking
giving
to?
them the skills, giving
Yeah,
them
yeah,
the
yeah. So, and Tish doesn't believe me. She's like, you're really great at this. I'm like, well, what I don't love it, and I don't think I'm great at, because there are people that are so great at
They're
taking people,
yes.
like Tish. Tish is
Yes.
amazing. They say it from I don't know to working pro. I'm great at like the last 60% of that. Once there's already some, but like if you're not an actor and you've never done VO, I don't know how to take like someone who doesn't know how to read at all and turn it into like a, polishing a turd or whatever. Like that's great. Yeah, like on the uncarved block. Like if they're just starting from nothing, who knows, they might be a genius in a year or whatever. But I'm not great at that, so I don't do as much of that. I really focus on coaching modality. Like I run we have weekly workouts at the dojo where it's mostly like working pros, people who've already been through the training, have a website, have demos, have representation. Maybe they've booked a little, maybe they've booked a ton, maybe they're not booking. One of my specialities is like taking people from the 5-figure level and moving them into the 6-figure level, where they just definitely don't ever need to like work a different job. They can just completely make a living in voiceover. So yeah, my skill set is really, and what I love doing is coaching the business. So that was something the dojo didn't even realize they were lacking. They were so great at getting people to be good performers that they just sort of let people go off and, okay, now you know how to do it, go do it. I
I
mean, there
think
was
there's a
something.
huge disconnect in LA with that. It's
Yeah,
all about the technique and being the talent and the
yeah,
artist. And when you do the work right, it will all come. And that's garbage. And not only that, I think I even heard Tish say, I don't know if it was in a class with you, but it was in something else or maybe an interview that I was listening where
yeah.
she knows herself. She was like, it's not your agent's job to market for you. They do a lot of wonderful things that make them great and
They get 10%
amazing.
for a reason. They
Yeah,
don't get.
exactly. We need
Yeah,
them in our corner, and it's great. They
yeah,
do stuff that I sure don't want to do.
yeah.
But the marketing, once you get on their roster, you don't only audition for everything if you want to really, yeah, make things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have been, just to give you a little of my background, I've been a working professional actress for over 30 years. I've been making a living every year. I'm like, how did I manage to not? I've never really hardly needed a day job, other than I own several properties, and to buy my first property, I needed stable income, which I've never had in my life. So for 2 years, I managed a film marketing company. I signed on my first mortgage, and that was like 22
Way
years
to
ago.
go.
Now I
Oh,
own my
God.
farm in Ecuador. I own a duplex in Minneapolis. I own this home here. We bought a farm in Michigan last year, and we're working on getting another small multi-unit. So
Incredible.
Yeah, so my mom was a real estate agent, my dad was an investment banker, so I get to be an artist who is really business savvy and knows how to make a living at this stuff.
I love
Um,
it.
I've been in SAG-AFTRA for 25 years. I'm on the SAG-AFTRA board of directors, and I've been doing mostly voiceover for about 15 years. And certainly since I left LA, there's not much there's not much on camera here for the union talent.
Yeah.
But Bonnie Gillespie is sort of the Tish Hicks of LA. If you know her, I always tell people, like, if you want to get the on-camera version of what Tish does, she's really like the business side of things. And I think it might be a little more important, like 60-40, like being smart and business savvy. Loads of talented people never make a living at their art or their craft or whatever, but a lot of business savvy, sort of talented people do. So I
Figure
think
it's true. They
good at
figure it
business,
out.
yeah, it's a profession, it's what the business, we call it the business for a reason. So as much as I love the craft and the art and everything, I'm very lucky that I love the business side. I'm good at the business side. My favorite thing about the dojo is called Focus Action Forum, and it's only for the working pro level, the nth degree. And it is every other week we get together. You talked about accountability. That's one part of it, is it's an accountability group, but we work the steps basically. Like, we talk about, like, what are we doing, how are we doing it, laser focusing. I
I
need
love
help
it.
with this. I have some advice here, I have some connections here, here's a job I heard about. So it's all that kind of like professional level networking, marketing, accountability. And that's just my favorite thing about the dojo, is like cheerleading people when they're booking, helping people when they're, we all go through plateaus and
Mhm.
slumps. And so just, holding people through that space of, like, it's temporary, and figure out some, it's an opportunity for a new tack, like what
Yep.
you did in the last decade isn't going to work going forward.
That's
So
right.
figure.
And your downtime is not the time to be down and out. It's the time to really get going on, like, at new skill, new something, something that
Yep.
you can add into the mix.
Yep.
Cool. Well, okay. Tell us about this recent transition in your voiceover career. You're carving
Yeah.
out a new path here. This has to
Yeah.
do with your coaching, right? It's becoming a
No,
more
it,
frequent thing.
it well, I mean, it all ties in together, but the shift that's really happening is one of the things I preach, like I said, is like auditioning less and working
Oh
more.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Really, really become clear to me as a 30-year working pro. I still have to audition for a three-figure gig. I still have to audition for almost everything, and I don't. I finally decided. I sent my agents last year. I've got reps all over the board, and that's a big thing I teach, is that outside of North America, industry standard for pros is you book off of your resume and your demos. Like, even as an on-camera actor, you're gonna go right to like a callback. They're gonna be like, we're auditioning 3 people for this role, not we're auditioning 1 to 800 people for this
It's
role,
so
and
inefficient on so many
so, yeah,
levels.
for everybody. So I am being the change I want to see, and it is already changing. Like, I've booked. So my biggest brag from last year was I did 48 SAG-AFTRA spots for Biden's Build Back Better plan. That was the most I've ever earned in 2 hours of my life. 48 union spots. So like the session fee plus the,
Oh my
13-week
goodness.
usage. And I
Yes.
want to do more political.
Yeah,
So
right?
Maria Siegel's working on getting me more political stuff, and I just did new political demos with this awesome producer. And what was I saying? So
Uh
getting the big
the
jobs.
transition to having
Oh,
demos.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that
Using demos.
that job I booked off of my commercial demo. I didn't even have political demos yet. I
I was
didn't. I was
totally going to ask you this. I was going to ask you if you had a political demo and if you were
Yeah.
actively really just lasering in on that, or if that one. So often
No.
it happens like that. Like, I will have never done one narration job or something, and then it comes up, and then I'm like, oh, I really liked that. Okay, let's unpack that and do more of that. But
Yeah,
that
so
hasn't
yeah,
happened for me
leaning
with
into what
political.
is working. Do your ROI calculations. I'm really big about portfolio diversification and ROI.
Yes.
Can you tell I'm the child of investors? So figure out where the least amount of time is generating the most money. For instance, social media. I always say in the VO world, there's no needs, there's no have to. I have to update my demo. I have to do social media. I need an agent. Like, do you? people have six-figure careers without an agent, without pay-to-plays, without social media. Social media is a big one that the whole time it's been around. I call it anti-social media. I'm
I
on the
like
spectrum.
that.
I'm neurodivergent on the autism spectrum, and that stuff is a nightmare to me. I'm not on any, I'm on LinkedIn, and I use it just to like stay in contact.
Sure.
Looking at this wall of content is like, I like my heart clenches. So it's so funny. All the years that I've been making a living as an actress, and people would go, you need to do social media because you're an actor. You need to do, I'm like,
No, you
no.
don't. If you
You
want
make
to
a
be a
living,
content creator and an influencer where then you collect money to be able to make your content from different brands, it's a whole different career. It's a whole different world. And it's a
but the
whole
message is out there.
different
Yeah,
set of mountains to
yeah,
climb that you have
yeah,
to want to do. It doesn't,
yeah,
you're completely right. That's
yeah.
the social
So
media
just
stuff is.
everyone listening, I release you from your needs. If you're like, I can't stand the idea of direct marketing, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do any of it. Figure out what feels good and do
Right.
that.
You do have to
I'm
choose
audition.
something.
So people would say you have to audition to be an actor. I've been offered. I just did a feature film. I did a voiceover in a feature film. I didn't even audition for. They just knew me and loved me and offered me. I just had a table read for another feature that's going to be shooting here in the Twin Cities, and I've known the writer, director, producer, married couple for decades, and I did the table reads for them. I just did the narration,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because they're like, you're a voice talent. Can you do this? We'll pay you. And, it was at this like fancy Hollywood producer who happens to live in Minneapolis, Minnesota at his multi-million-dollar home. And we're reading through it. And I was like, oh, there's a few lines in here for like a GPS Siri character. Like, I'm the voice of Ellen DeGeneres' iPhone Siri Generous show. One of my specialities is GPS, AI, computer, robot voices. And they're like, well, we don't have to audition for that role now.
Done and done.
Yeah, so relationships. Like, I love people. I'm lucky that I'm like an extroverted introvert, I guess. Like, I mostly like to be alone. I recharge alone, but I'm not shy at all. I'm very social, and I love being of service to people, and I love connecting people, just going, oh, you need to meet this person needs it. So
I
people
noticed that right away with you. You wrote back from an email from me, probably one of the only ones in my entire email list, and where it's just like, hi, here I am. These are all the things I know. This is what I have to offer, and you should talk to this person, this person, this person, this person. And I was like, God, that's so cool.
I can't help myself.
So, in forging this new direction and movement, have you, and being the change agent, the change that you wish to see in the world, is it that you told your agents, if they absolutely must have an audition from me and it's amazing money, sure, I'll do it. But otherwise, can we just go off of my demo, which is definitely sufficient and is sufficient in all these other markets around the world? And what kind of a response did you get?
So I have not sent that email out yet. What I'm sending out right now, so I have a virtual assistant in Venezuela, Alvin Marufor. So if anybody wants his contact info, anybody can contact me through my website, catherinecampion.com, or email me, cat@catherinecampion.com. Alvin is now, he's one of my people in Venezuela making $2.50 an hour. And his client base is entirely voiceover professionals, especially bilingual. A lot of my Spanish English, because his English is better than most Americans. Like, he's perfectly fluent in English. And of course, he's a native Spanish speaker. So he communicates in Spanish and English to my different clients. So I just emailed him today saying, could you send this email? He maintains my CRM, and he is emailing all of my clients from like the past 15 years to let them know that I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got a segue.
What?
That was so good. Okay. Ooh. How long have you been using a CRM?
Oh, brand new to it. I've been using, so I've been using
spreadsheets.
No, FreshBooks. I've been using to invoice everyone. FreshBooks.com. It's just the cool thing about FreshBooks. I wish they had like a referral code, because I've sent them 100 clients. It has a ton of different languages. So if you work internationally, my invoices go to my clients in their native language.
Oh, that is very cool.
All different currencies. And you can see if they've opened it and how many times and when. Because I've had a couple clients go like, oh, we never got your invoice. It's not that they're trying to
I see you viewed it on May 29th.
Yeah, too many different people dipping in, and I was like, "Oh, well, somebody opened it because I can see that it was checked then." And then you just know, like, I'll look a month later and go, "Oh, this one was never even opened, so I need to reach out to them and go, just so you know, I sent you an invoice 30 days ago, so, pay when you can." So I love FreshBooks, and I just used it as my CRM
Mm-hmm.
for years. And so I had Elving, for $15 an hour, import my which I love. He's just like, This is more money than I could ever
I'm
make investment."
sure.
Loves it,
Yes. Mm.
and I feel like that's like a great minimum wage for the United States. So,
I have a
um,
girl do my bookkeeping in the Philippines, and I pay her that much too, which is
yeah,
a great wage for her and
yeah, like
totally
quit trouble.
proficient. Same thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I feel like it's a win-win. We're trying to get him out of Venezuela. So if anybody's looking for a husband, maybe I'd love to get him married off, maybe, just to get him to
I
the
love
U.S.
it. Yeah. Anybody?
Yeah, he's a composer, editor, so he can also like do like long form editing because he's a
Oh, I
composer
love it. You've
guy.
got a very specifically a voiceover virtual assistant then. If you can use him
Yeah,
for admin and you can use him for
editing. Yeah.
editing, that's brilliant.
Yep, and
Because
I trained him in, like, he wasn't, he was my Spanish teacher, so I've only been speaking Spanish for, like, 5 years, like, 6, 7 years ago, I did not speak any Spanish, so he was, like, my primary tutor and why I'm able to work in Spanish now. So
okay,
he
so
also,
you're
if anybody just
slightly a prodigy because if you just speak and work and do voiceover jobs after, I mean, that's amazing to me. Or maybe it's just a wall and a block that I have because people tell me every day that my Spanish is good, and I'm always like, what? No, it's not. It can't be.
flash of insight that I just had last year. So I did my first Spanish language documentary last year, and I was like, "Are you sure you don't want to nate?" Because I don't sound native. Apparently, I can sound quite fluent more than I actually am because I have a good ear. Same with my French. When I used to speak French, and people were
Yeah,
like,
me
they
too.
thought I was French Canadian, and they speak, and I was like, I'm like an advanced beginner in French. I just am really good with accents and dialects.
Same
So
here. But then you
yeah,
get into a conversation, and I'm like, okay,
yeah.
I'm
So
just gonna get
one
on
of
Google
my
Translate.
ongoing telephone answering system clients that I
Yes.
got strangely from Big Fish, the ones in New
Oh, I
Zealand.
remember them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So because there's one in North America as well,
Oh,
or the
yeah, I
in,
remember the one in North America. I
yeah,
didn't know
they
there
were
was one
like
in New Zealand.
Oregon or
They were in
Colorado or
Denver. Mm-hmm.
Denver. So this is Big Fish, or is it Big Mouth?
Maybe it's Big Mouth.
Big Mouth,
If
Big Mouth. So
mm-hmm.
they're on the like VO Agent Alliance, which I always tell people, if you're newer and you're looking for portfolio diversification, those are some of the best easily accessible agents in the country and like really tuned into
Excellent.
the market. VO Agent Alliance. So they're the only foreign, other than like Canadian, they're the only non-North American agency somehow on that list. And so I submitted to them, and I'm repped by them. But the New Zealand dollar is not so good right now, so the pay isn't great. But Sarah's really always apologetic, like, I'm trying to get more better rates for you guys. But she gave me a gig. She didn't even take a percentage. This is my agent. She said, "Oh, this client was interested in your voice to do like telephone answering systems for them." They're just one of those companies that's all they do is telephone. And
Sure.
I was like, yeah, I guess I'll do that because that kind of work. It's like it's not glamorous, it's not high pay, but
It's a couple of my ongoing clients. There's
yeah,
no
yeah.
shame in it. It's great
Yeah, and I
money.
have, I have another story about one of my biggest, longest clients started as a telephone answering client. So this one also, they started as telephone. They sent me, so I do through them, they got me the Knights of Columbus. Do you know what that is? Like a Catholic charitable nonprofit
It's
organization in the US.
familiar. Okay.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Shriners and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
So I got hired to do their telephone answering systems. They sent me the script in English, French, and Spanish, and I did all three. And they were like, "Oh, we didn't know you spoke. We just accidentally sent you those scripts." And I was like, "Well, it took a lot of work. Like, I haven't spoken French for over a decade, so I had to like run it by a friend." And she's like, "That word's pronounced wrong. This could be more like that." The Spanish, I'm pretty fluent in, so that was no problem. So now I do all their Spanish, and they have a native Spanish speaker on their team there, and she's just like, "Yeah, I mean, it sounds like U.S. Spanish. It sounds like North American, what I would call
You
like
need to just
native."
start practicing reading out loud in Spanish because that's what I don't ever do.
Yeah, the
I
reading is different
speak.
because,
I'm
yep,
I'm getting and for the last year and a half, I've been getting my conversational skills up.
yep,
And for the first several years, my vocabulary was really strong, but I couldn't put any of the words together because I never needed to. So
yeah,
now I'm there, and I think I'm just not great at reading because I just think I never have.
yeah,
Uh,
because I didn't realize I wasn't great at that. Like going back and listening to that documentary, it's well Spanished, it's well pronounced and everything. sounds like someone reading. It sounds like to me, it sounds like a non-professional, but they loved it. They thought I was
Yeah,
great.
if they loved it, then that's what matters. And
But
you
here's
probably are being overcritical.
yeah, probably. And here's the thing. When I was thinking, why wouldn't you use a native Spanish speaker? Think about if we wanted to watch a documentary in English about a Mexican famous person in Mexico. Wouldn't it make sense that that English speaker would have a Mexican accent?
Whoa.
So
Yes.
there's a whole market for non-native Spanish speakers with, like a US accent, as long as you don't sound like super gringo, but you sound
Yeah.
like someone who learned Spanish as a second language very well.
Yeah.
Having said that, most of that work is going to be Spanish language market, which does not pay. Even Spain is like one of the lowest paying markets in Europe. And then you've got Latin America. So it's not a big focus of mine. My website, I had it translated and you can click from English to Spanish just so people know. Mostly I communicate with Spanish speaking clients in Spanish. I've been directed in sessions in Spanish and it didn't go great because my speaking skills are so much higher than my hearing, understanding,
Yeah.
listening. I
Uh-huh.
say,
Uh-huh.
soy una mala escuchadora. And they don't like, I'm like, I made up a word, escuchadora, a listener. They don't
I
have the
got
word
it.
listener in Spanish.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
any non-native Spanish speaker gets it, but they didn't. But I identify as a poor listener, both in English and we're all bad listeners. We're all like already figuring out what we're going to say next and we're over speaking. And I grew up in a huge Irish American loud drunky kind of family. So I'm very comfortable with like over talking. That's not rude to me at all. That's like family. That's like comfortable. Like, yeah, talk over each other.
Yeah.
So I've had to work on being a better listener, and especially in Spanish. That is my weakness, is being able to hear it and understand it in anything but a
It's
one-to-one.
hard.
Like put me in a bar or restaurant or out and there's voices. I'm like, one at a time, I go slower. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
progress. But so just, yeah, to put that out there, that there is work for people who are not native Spanish speakers. Then before I forget the train about the telephone answering system thing, my probably biggest ongoing client is Sunbelt Rentals. Do you know who they are?
No. I don't know
So
some.
if you ever notice like construction sites, they have giant green equipment. They all
Sure.
have this. There's one company that rents all, they're a $5 billion company. They rent all the equipment. It all says Sunbelt Rentals. I am the voice of that company. So they found me on a pay to play, the one that shall not be named,
Uh-huh.
uh, 13, 14, 15 years ago, hired me to do telephone answering systems. I'm like 50 cents a word with a $75 minimum. And that's still, now I have like $100 minimum, but I'm still 50 cents a word, which I've since learned most people charge like 15 to 35 cents a word for long
Uh-huh.
form. I didn't know any better. So I start at
That's
50 cents a word,
beautiful.
no matter how long it is. So I've done some really well paying
I know.
e-learning. And
On accident, I did that
yeah.
with some
Oh,
clients early on. It was like, well, it's $100 a minute, and that went for a while, and I can even still get away with it,
yeah.
plenty to be a default. But e-learning and the rate, I feel bold when I'm asking for 30. And I've had friends that told me they charge 10 cents a word. I'm like, you can't do that. That's not
Yeah.
even in a raw session where you walk away,
Like
that will
50 bucks.
never add up to anything. I know. But
Well, it's still a
but
pretty good
30 is
rate.
good, and honestly, I don't think I've ever heard of 50. So you are
Yeah.
winning.
I didn't know any better. So I've been doing their telephone answering system for years, and it's a substantial chunk of my income every year because it's like once a week. Here's one, two, or three $75 gigs that literally take me 5-10 minutes to record, send, invoice, and I'll invoice like once a week all the ones that came in. So a couple of years ago, oh gosh, now I hope they never hear this. Well, I don't think they care that they're paying me really well because they adore me. But 2 years ago, the guy that again, talk about relationships. We have such a great camaraderie, collaboration as a business, colleagues, or, client relationship.
Yeah.
Um, we talk about like chickens and farming and cannabis and fishing and off-roading and, motorcycles and bicycles, whatever. So I get that's another thing I do. Doesn't work for everyone. It's part of my autism stuff. I'm full disclosure. I don't know how to edit and like keep parts disclosed. And that has worked in my favor. Like, man, the doors that have opened
I
by
love
just,
it. As
yeah.
long as it's all joyful, then
Yeah, I got nothing to hide.
uh-huh.
But I really
There's
respect privacy too. Like I love when people are like, "What are they up to? What are they?" That'll never be me. I'll never be mysterious because I'm just like, ask me a question, and I don't know how to lie, and I don't know how to
I don't
obfuscate.
know why.
So he called me and he's like, "Hey, Sunbelt Rentals, the largest equipment rental company in North America, who's been buying up little mom and pop shops around North America for years, and now they rent everything. We're opening direct to consumer locations in every. Have you heard of Walmart in North America? So every Walmart is like getting a Sunbelt Rentals in it, where you can go learn how to, and just the smaller tools and stuff like. It's so great, like share to a tool library all over North America. Could you do like, we need hundreds of like safety videos and instructional videos
Yes
narrated,
and
and would you
yes.
be willing to do those for 50 cents a word again? And I was
Oh,
like, yeah, and I was like, well, I have like a 250 minimum per video, but if they're short, then I'll just send you all the audio or whatever, and you can cut it into as many. But yeah, 50 cents a word. How many words is it? 40,000 words. So that's a pretty easy $20,000 to just do, a few hours a day for a couple of weeks to knock that out. And they still occasionally.
those are
And then I started doing
beautiful. And they just,
commercials for them, and I'm
oh,
like, oh,
cool.
$1,000 a pop for internet commercials for them or whatever.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah,
wait.
they're
So
one of
I'm
my
going to
customers.
bring it full circle back to
Yeah.
where we were and tie it back into. I love that you are just now implementing a CRM. Because, like you were saying earlier, you were like, stuff that we did 10 years ago that worked for the next 10 years, you can't plug in the same formula. And I've been seeing. Well, I mean, with my own contacts, they're all on random spreadsheets all over the everywhere, Excel and Drives and the cloud and Google Drive. And there was another guy who runs another group somewhere on Facebook, Josh Alexander, and
Yeah, and
he has I think he just preaches CRMs, but I know he has one that I think he built and he uses,
oh,
and I'm looking at buying it. It's customizable. It like you're doing stuff in there and you're looking at the client and you can just press a keyboard shortcut and it will then go straight to opening up the direct email in Outlook out to the client and
oh,
everything else. And
okay.
his completely ties in with the invoicing, but you use FreshBooks. I'm so in love with Wave that I've had for so long, Wave accounting, that
Mm,
I don't need the accounting part of it. But still, it's a small nominal fee, and I'm getting ready to make a major transition into CRMs. His is called, like, him and his whole super everything Superman branding. So it's like one
yeah.
voice data. Or maybe it's
Oh,
like first voice data, something like that. But I think I'm gonna buy it. I have been looking at it lately and thinking about how I want all my client contact info in one place to be able to manage it all looking forward, because right now I want to build my client list back up to something that I can hardly keep up with, but because I have a CRM I can. That's the goal. Ooh, what's
yeah.
this?
So that's just my referral link for the one we use, which is Zoho. There is like a
I was
voice.
looking at that too. There's a
Okay, so that Elving did all like, I pay him to learn. I'll be like, I
Yep.
need to figure out which is the best one. Charge me by the hour, do all the research, come back to me with the best. So he loves this one. He's using it for all the voiceover clients he's got from me. There is one in the industry that is created, but I don't think it's Joshua Alexander's. I'm glad I don't know whose it is or what it's called, because I've heard bad things about it. We all
Mm.
wanted it to be awesome because it was like from one of us or whatever, but people are like, yeah, I just don't love it, so I'm not going to use it.
I
So,
don't think Josh has sold this to too many people or gotten it out, so I doubt it's
oh, okay,
his. But
yeah, okay,
still,
yeah, I
yeah,
don't think
I
it
am
was.
wanting to ask around and to know more because I'm
Yeah,
getting ready to dive in and I want to choose the right one too,
yeah. So
which is
I'll loop
different for
back to
everybody.
where we went off on the CRM tangent. Was Elving. I sent an email to Alving today saying, going, can you please send this message to everyone in my CRM? And I'm going to go off on another little tangent and come back around. When I do this, when I send a booking out message, I get clients from 10 years ago going, oh yeah, we do need to hire you for something before you go out of
Uh-huh.
town. Really great little tip. Even if you don't need to go out of town, take a week off or whatever, and just let your clients know you won't be available. And all of a sudden clients will come out of the woodwork like, oh, you're not going to be available, we need you. So i
I
had i
know
had
it.
send my 400 plus clients a little message saying, I am going to the Rocky Mountain National Park the last week of June, first week of July, without my gear. I have not done this once, not more than like 3 days to go without my gear and plan on not working at all. I mean, I'll
It's
still email
so
or I'll lose
freeing.
my mind like building up all the stuff, but I'm not going to bring my gear or worry about if the cabin we've rented has good sound treat. I'm just going into the mountains with my love and my dog for 2 weeks.
Good for
And so
you.
Alving is sending out this message. And the reason I bring this up is after that goes out, I'm personally going to email all of my agents and say, I'm booking out for these 2 weeks. Now, if someone needs me for a job and they want to pay for a studio in Denver or Boulder or whatever, I will totally, I mean, that could pay for the whole,
Right.
if it's that kind of job, it could pay for the whole trip. So I love what I do for a living. That's not even work to me to go into a studio and get directed and not edit and all that. I would
Especially
love
when
to
you're
love.
in a city that you're traveling through and then to have a
I
job and a reason to be
It's
there. I love
exciting.
all that.
No,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to send an email saying I'm booking out for these 2 weeks. I won't be auditioning, and I'll only, if anyone needs me to book me into a studio, I'll be in the Boulder area or whatever.
It's such a good
Um,
way to reach out to everybody. And also, they always say, like, do you want a great opportunity? Just leave town and they'll all come rolling in. All the most
yep,
perfect for you parts freaking ever will be
yep.
on your doorstep and begging you to do a job for them. And
And the
you'll
great thing
be,
for VO is we
but
can
when
do
you're proactive about it and you do all of this, you have the best chance of anybody of getting in front of it and even bringing in more work because you're reminding all those people that you exist.
yeah.
Okay, I want to go on to
Let me,
where were
let me
we?
finish this
Oh,
story because
please.
we're explaining how I'm changing my career.
Oh, go.
Remember? Yeah, we're going back to this
Sorry.
like, oh, what's this big shift? So no, I haven't emailed my agents yet, but I was saying I'm going to send this email that I'm booking out for the Rockies, but then I'm also going to say, and by the way, I am like as of now not I'm pausing, I'm not auditioning for the rest of 2022 and I'm in a place where I can afford to do that and I want to spend when I became an actress 30 years ago, I did not sign up for 3 to 8 hours a day sitting at a computer to make a living. That's not why I became a performer. So I'm done auditioning and editing and invoicing and all that bullshit. And I'm just going back to like, I'm like direct booking only, and I've booked enough through agencies. I've booked national network TV commercials off my demos. I've certainly booked corporate narrations, like big union stuff off my demos. So I'm just going to let the agents know that this is where I am in my career. Is if people want me, they can listen to my body of work from the past 15 years.
Yeah.
Hire me.
Yeah. The system is out of date. I don't know. It's every 5 years or so there's something that's just like, oh, this has been out of date for so long. Will somebody please stop making a slate or auditions and saying our name like that, and that seems like the next one. I totally agree with you. I think that that's it. This is all a great plan, and I'm going to keep tabs on you because I want to know what the reactions are. I imagine some will fight it and some will think that some will just support you completely and be 100% behind you. Okay.
Yeah, I think most of my agents I've been with long enough and I've made enough money for them that they'll be like, sure, whatever, they'll probably feel like, I don't know if we'll be able to get you any work that way, but we'll keep you in mind.
And we'll
And that's
try.
all I want. That's all I'm asking. My primary agent, Kate at More Creative, who I've been with More Creative in Minneapolis since I was a teenager. So like
Oh my
over.
gosh, I know her.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Uh-huh.
So,
I
so
I
yes,
guess I'm not even on her roster. When she had her kid, she dropped off the map a little bit, and speaking of CRM, I need to be reaching back out to her because I used to work with her a lot.
oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Long time ago,
Yeah,
though.
they read me for on camera too. They've gotten me some big on camera commercials
How
and
cool.
movies. Yeah.
Well, okay. My next question was actually about what you. I think you were on the wait list to get in to talk about it this morning, but just if we could quickly touch on,
Mm-hmm.
um, it was Carol Kimball's talk and Q&A for SAG, and I wanted to know straight out of your mouth why you go to those and what you get out of them.
Well, I mean, it's the same reason people are tuning into this right now. There's just always, more information, more learning, and to hear it directly from like one of the top voiceover casting directors, like to have access to be able to ask her questions, like, and it's
Yeah,
free. Why wouldn't you do that?
definitely.
Again, I've been in the union 25 years. I'm a big proponent of people like joining and staying in the union. I want everyone to be in the union. I don't, we refer to like non-union people as pre-union. The rates are great. The protections are great. The health insurance is great. So I just think it's one of the many things that our union gives us that's only for union members. And I think it's still for the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. So for those that are listening that aren't aware of it, it is not part of SAG-AFTRA. It is actually a nonprofit separate from SAG-AFTRA.
Oh,
And I'm not sure if they've changed this. You do not have to be a member of that union. You can be a member of our sister union, Equity, for stage actors, to be able to participate in their events. Except I think the voiceover stuff might be so competitive that they've decided, like, people want to get into those classes and workshops. I think you have to have a SAG-AFTRA card for those, but there's a lot that the foundation offers that you can just have an Equity card. I think at least that's how it was when I was living in LA. And it used to be all in person, and now it's all virtual
cool.
indefinitely, the New York and LA versions of
When
it.
it was in person, I was ready for it to be virtual. And also, I think I was worried that it was dated in what the information that it has to offer, but it sounds like they've caught up just as much and are not. And
Oh, they've always had like top level agents and managers and casting directors. So I don't know how it couldn't be current if that's maybe you're thinking about the conservatory or
I think I just was making an incorrect presumption
oh yeah.
based
Oh,
off of
because it's
zero
free.
information. Yeah,
Oh,
maybe. Or
oh,
maybe
it
just
can't be good.
assuming,
It's
like,
free. This is free.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
no, I've
cool.
gotten jobs
I'm
out of
definitely
it.
going to start attending those. I want to know where you see your voiceover career in 5 years. I'm just so curious.
Yeah. So I am moving partially away from, I'm just moving away from the time commitment aspect of voiceover, the
Yeah,
hustle. Like, I love the hustle. I'm great at the hustle. I'm enjoying coaching and
clearly.
teaching the hustle, but I want to do less hustle myself. Yeah. So in 5 years, like, I'm trying to move away from the hustle, and I'm a certified death midwife. I'm a certified adaptive yoga teacher. I teach people with physical and mental disabilities and seniors. So I get so much out of that, and it pays so little. I would love to do more of those things, the death midwifery and the yoga stuff.
I've
And
never
yeah,
heard of dead midwifery. That's really
oh, okay.
cool.
Or death doula, some people say, just like
Okay.
end of life care and like home funerals and green burial
How
and hospice.
beautiful. What an
It's,
amazing thing to offer. I commend you. I've never even thought about that. And boy, would there be a need, because
yeah,
nobody is
everybody's doing it.
thinking. I,
Everybody's dying.
yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Well, yeah, as I mentioned off, off camera, that I lost my best friend to breast cancer 4 years ago. She was 37 years old. I had just finished training as a death midwife, and then she told me she had cancer, and then I spent the next 3 years watching her die in slow motion. Um,
Mm.
Gosh, I usually, oh yeah, here, this is beautiful. Mimi Moss.
Oh my God.
She's a goddess, and she left her 10-year-old daughter behind.
Oh, that's
But
so hard. I'm so sorry.
she was my first client, and I learned like how much it's needed and how much I still had to learn, by going through it. Like, I was there when she died. So I want to do more of that, and I want to do less. So in 5 years, to answer your question, I see this month as sort of the beginning of the next 5 years, which will be hopefully working as little as possible and making as much money as possible. Like, I'm really just going to trust that I've been using this metaphor lately of like, um, my mantra is effort less, allow more, or less efforting, more allowing. And we're big proponents of that at the dojo. And just this past week, it really came clear to me. I get these flashes of insight on the meditation seat or on the yoga mat, because the students are like, wait, am I supposed to effort? Aren't I supposed to be doing tasks for my career? But then you want me to just trust that it's going to come. And it's like both. So
Mm-hmm.
are you a surfer?
No, I really should be. I
Okay.
go to a boot camp every Tuesday where I watch a surf camp happen literally right in front of me. It's gonna happen
So
someday. Hopefully, I won't
how
be
much
too old.
effort does it take to catch the wave, to get yourself out there in the water? And it's so hard because I
It's the
have surfed.
push.
You got to get yourself out there, and then you
Mm-hmm.
got to get up on that board, and you got to do years of yoga and balance and stuff to be on that board. And then you get on that board and you just
It gets
ride.
a lot easier. And some waves, I totally use this metaphor with the workshops that's so funny. I use the same thing of getting up
Yep.
on a wave. And some jobs are so sweet. It's like you can ride that thing all the way into the shore, you
And for
know?
those who don't surf, ever ridden a roller coaster?
Right.
So the effort to pull this thing up, and then you just got to let it drop because it's out of your control, and magic happens, and loop de loop,
Right.
and gravity, and centrifugal force, and so yeah. So those are the two metaphors I'm using now of like less efforting, more allowing, and that's what I want to talk the I want to walk the walk. Like I want to effort very little
Yes.
and allow the allowing, allow the flow, and just keep attracting these
Show
huge
us
gigs.
all the way. Please. I think it's great. Every other coach out there is all about hustle, 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 hustle in order to have this enterprise.
Mhm.
I just took a workshop recently with someone where I was like, okay, they talked about how much they made this year, and it was remarkable. It was over $250,000. But then I heard their schedule, and I'm like, so when do you see your kids, in my mind? When do you
Yeah.
see this? When do you get to do that? How are you a part of this? And all of those things are just more important to me than making twice as much money. If I have enough where things are okay and I'm comfortable and I get to spend time with my family, that's success to me and that's
Yeah, work-life
ideal.
balance, yeah.
Not
That's why
being tethered to your computer from 5:30 a.m. I think he said until 10 o'clock at night. That's not
and they
healthy.
yeah, and I noticed you said "he" because I was gonna say that had to have
Oops.
been male, 'cause well, I'm just saying it's always been. We have a different our brains are, ours is like spaghetti and theirs is like compartmentalized boxes, and when you say all the coaches always say hustle, 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 it's like, do they or do all the male
You're
coaches? Because
It's
I
a
find like
important
Kay
distinction.
Best and yeah, and Tish Hicks and stuff, we all talk about work-life balance and allowing and trusting and the woo-woo of Southern California. So room for both, but instead of hustle, 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 it's hustle, breathe, work,
I
life.
love that.
Yeah. It's very female forward. And when people are like, well, why the dojo versus all the other places to spend your money? The things that come to mind are we are truly holistic. We cover tech, we cover the business, we give you access to the gatekeepers. Like most places can't introduce you. Name a person in Hollywood you want to meet, and we will make it happen. We will invite them to come to we do fight clubs for the working pros.
I've
We
seen
pay
those.
them for their time to come, you know, to audition us and work us out. And where else can you get? And it's actually pretty. I don't know anyone who charges less for those. There are other places that for like $200 you can meet the pros. Ours are like $100. We do, yeah. So all encompassing and mindset. I don't know any other place that really talks about like, are you the thing that's standing in the way of your success of your career?
Really cool.
So those are the big, yeah, all encompassing includes mindset and access to the gatekeepers. Those are the things that come. And we're like LA based. So, like, do you want to study as much as I love like my regional people? If you want to work at the top level of your industry, you really have to study with people who are either there physically or, like Cliff Zellman, he's in Texas, but I consider him to be top level
Right.
Hollywood. He works for ACM, he
Mm-hmm.
coaches all the time for his niche, which is automotive. He's
Mm-hmm.
a total mensch. He's a total genius. He's a total success story. He doesn't. I put myself in that category as well. I'm in Minneapolis. I don't care if anyone thinks I'm not legit because I'm not in LA. But I did spend 15 years there, so I
Yeah.
have connections and understanding of the industry that very few people in my market in Minneapolis have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Well,
we skipped like, what do I see the industry in 15 years?
well, that would be the most perfect wrap up. That was actually the last one because it
Oh,
sounds like you might have a few guesses or a vision. You have a smirk on your face.
well, to be totally honest, I think AI is going to wipe out all that entry level. Nobody's going to be doing 2, 3 figure gigs on Fiverr anymore because that's exactly the kind of stuff that AI is going to replace. And that's great. I mean, if we go back to the way things were, which was like voice talent does like commercial video games and animation and promo and trailer, that stuff, I don't see that ever being replaced
N-
by robots because their budgets are so big for those anyway. They don't need to save $1,000 on the voice talent to use a robot. But
the
I do see,
nuances just aren't there. I don't see that happening. And
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Maybe I mean audiobooks, but like gross. Most people will still prefer an audiobook read by a human, but there already are some audiobooks being done by AI. I
Mm-hmm.
was gonna do my AI voice for Rupal, is that her name? The woman that does AI. She's like the most legit audio AI person. She was at VO Atlanta. I can't remember the name of the company.
Because she's done a lot of AI voices, or because she works for
No,
an AI company?
She runs the company that like created a market, a system, a really good AI voice where you get to license your voice. They're the only one I know of where it's not like a buyout. I would never just sell. I don't, maybe for 6 figures, but no, who's going to pay that? So just to sell my voice, they come to you each time like, can we use it for this? Can we use it for this? But they do take 80%. And that's where I was like, meh. Watching your previous one of these with J. Michael Collins, his stance on like never know. I was like, okay, I'm going to be like JMC. I am a top level professional. I don't need that AI, whatever money might come out of it. I don't want to be part of that. It sounds gross, that robot stuff. I'd rather just, other than offering voices to like people with disabilities, that's one thing that you can do for people. But
so then you saw the part in the interview where I was talking about how I did an AI voice, and then I saw a commercial, or no, like people kept writing me until somebody filmed their screen and was like, no, this is your voice. And I'm listening to it like, oh my God. But the truth is, that person was already looking for an AI voice. They were already planning on only spending money for an AI voice. They weren't trying to hire an actor. And maybe if AI didn't exist and they didn't have a choice, they would have gone to a pay-to-play, or they would have gone to an agency.
The point is not that you missed getting paid for your voice for that. The point is that if your voice is used for that without your permission, you might be excluding yourself from that entire industry, whatever it is that they used your voice for.
I do get money on the back end for that, though. I do get money on the back. Not a lot at all. But
that's what I'm saying. So say a car company did that to you, and you cannot be the voice of any other car company because you're getting 17 cents a day being the voice of this company, whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Because the car company would want exclusivity over my robot voice? You really think
yes.
so?
Yes. I think that's the main argument people are making, is that someone can use your voice without your consent, but the real financial risk is not like, hey, they need to pay me $1,000 for that commercial. The risk is they could put you, I wouldn't put my voice out there without being able to control it. And I do trust RuPaul to be able to do that, but you have to record hours and hours and hours of very meticulous voiceover for them to even be able to make an AI voice out of you. There's no sign that it's really being monetized a lot right now. So everyone I know who's done it is like, well, I just wanted to be like the cutting edge. I wanted to be in the front lines, that I wanted to be part of it rather than left behind. I'm like, I don't see my voiceover career being left behind by that in any way. So I think I've pretty much taken JMC's stance and not going to do that. And I'm kind of moving towards soft retirement anyway. So my 15 years from now, I don't have a lot of faith in industrial civilization 15 years from now, to be honest.
I might tend to agree with you there. My doom scrolling definitely tells me as such. Yeah, however, a lot of that, just like 60 pages of some sort of e-learning where they don't care. They don't care if it has extra personality, and they are just needing an AI voice for it. I would rather it be my AI voice and I get a cut and residuals quarterly paid out forever for everything that it's licensed out for no further work. And also that voice is just one avatar. It's like, you can make as many of them as you want. It's 10,000 words to make a voice. And they're 200
pages. Yeah, 200 pages.
I don't know what that would be. 10,000 words.
Yeah, 1,000 words is like 2 pages. So 20, wait.
It was about that much for Well Said Labs too, but now another place is courting me and trying to get me to make one for them too. And I was like, well, you talk about this money on the back end. Everything else for the terms looks pretty nice and agreeable, but I hate to be presumptuous and like I was coming in hot, but I was thinking more like double or triple that on the back end. Is there any wiggle room? And I was kind of just like going for it. Like, the worst they can say is no, and in the end I can still say no. And they came back and said they're going to discuss and try and give me a lot more on the back end. So
we're just doing a buyout, like a flat buyout.
No, not at all. They do a session fee that is more competitive than the first one by 3 times. They do a minimum guarantee for the first year of quarterly payouts that are at least $200 a month while they're getting everything started and up and running, and then they offer 20% of everything licensed on the back end. This is a huge step up from the last company. The last company gives you $1 an hour of recorded stuff that gets taken.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's that company? The second one, the newer one?
I can tell you.
I can't remember.
I don't want to click to it here because I'll be screen recording my entire.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be in the interview.
I'm gonna look up RuPaul's. VocalID.ai is her company. So if people want to do that, apply. I was gonna be like their neutral. Oh, okay.
Murph AI. So they are popping up everywhere.
One thing that occurred to me too, you talk about like creating this database of your voice and then collecting residuals forever. I suspect every few years the technology is going to advance and they're going to be like, oh, throw that old stuff out. We can get people to do it for free. They are getting all of us to revoice for free. So why would they use the old system? So I feel like if I could be guaranteed.
That's a good point.
There's a lot of guarantees I'd want that are not available, which is A, that I could just do it once and be done. B, that they didn't use it for anything without my consent, which other than maybe the one you just mentioned, but this vocal ID, you can say no to anything. So they cannot do anything with it without your consent. And then I feel like the 20% thing wasn't really good enough for me. So maybe a bigger minimum for using my voice or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me. This has obviously gone plenty over, so I'm going to wrap it up. And I just can't thank you enough for answering all my questions and meeting with me today for this interview. Catherine Campion, everybody, she told the website earlier. Why don't you say it again?
CatherineCampion.com, CatherineCampion.com. Maybe we can put it in wherever this goes. You can put that.
That's right.
And then I coach at the VO Dojo.com, or I do private for private coaching. You can just go through me. But if you want to do classes and group things and stuff, get into the VO Dojo and tell them I sent you. Cat@CatherineCampion.com is a way to email me, or easier just to email me through the form on my website. If you have questions about anything I talked about here, it's been super fun.
Perfect. Cool. All right. Thanks again. That was wonderful. You are a wealth of information.
Thanks for giving me an opportunity to be of service.
It's a real pleasure. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.